My name is Roberta. It's been a few days since that fateful birthday party, and the memory still burns bright. I was in my backyard, surrounded by the laughter of children and the smell of grilled food, trying to keep my 4-year-old son, Liam, from getting frosting all over his hands. That's when I saw him. Mr. Thompson, the man who had cut me off when I was 16, walked through my gate as if he still had a place in my life. I hadn't seen him in years. Not at my high school graduation, not when I got married, and definitely not when Liam was born. But on this day, the one that was supposed to be all about my child, he decided to show up uninvited. As I looked at him standing there, holding a gift bag with shiny tissue paper, I felt a strange calmness wash over me. I had spent so long building a life that had nothing to do with him. A life filled with love, stability, and a chosen family who actually cared. When he started speaking, I let him. I listened as he pretended like the years of neglect had never happened. And then, he dropped the bombshell. He said he was in a financial bind and needed $80,000 from me. It was as if the world stopped for a moment. I stared at him in disbelief. I told him he had 5 minutes to leave my property, and I meant every word. But let me take you back to how I got here. My parents divorced when I was 12. My mother was a hard-working nurse who did her best to raise me, but she often had to work long hours. Mr. Thompson, my father, quickly moved on. He found a new wife, bought a fancy house on the outskirts of town, and seemed to forget all about me. I kept hoping that things would change. I thought he was just going through a rough patch. But one cold winter night when I was 16, he sat me down in the living room. With a cold expression on his face, he told me that he couldn't afford to take care of me anymore. He said I was old enough to figure things out on my own. I was in shock. I asked him where I was supposed to go. He just shrugged and said I was smart enough to find a way. I pleaded with him, telling him I was still a kid, but he was unmoved. He gave me 2 weeks to pack my things and leave. That night, I barely slept. I felt so alone and scared. The next day at school, I was in a daze. I didn't tell anyone at first, but by the end of the week, I broke down in the school bathroom. My best friend, Sarah, found me crying. When I told her what was happening, she took me to her parents. The Johnsons were amazing. They listened to my story with shock and compassion. They told me I could stay with them until I got back on my feet. I was so embarrassed, carrying my small suitcase into their guest room, constantly thanking them and promising not to be a burden. With the Johnsons' support, I finished high school. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore, working evenings and weekends. I learned to be tough, to hide my pain behind a smile. Mr. Thompson never once checked on me. He never asked how school was going or if I needed anything. After high school, I went to a community college. It was all I could afford. I worked hard, and eventually, I transferred to a university. I met my husband, Ryan, during my time at the university. He was kind, patient, and understanding. When I told him about my father, he didn't judge me. He just said that what had happened to me was wrong. Ryan and I got married in a small ceremony with our close friends and the Johnsons. Mr. Thompson was not invited, and I didn't miss him. A few years later, Liam was born. Every moment with him has been a blessing. Our house is filled with laughter, toys, and love. A few months before Liam's birthday, I noticed some strange activity on my social media. Mr. Thompson started liking my family photos. I ignored it at first, not wanting to open that old wound. Then, a distant cousin sent me a vague message asking about my life. I knew it was related to him, but I still didn't think he would actually show up at the party. But there he was, on that sunny afternoon, acting like he was part of the family. When he demanded the money, I was filled with a sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't let him bully me. As he threatened to take legal action if I didn't help him, I stood my ground. I grabbed his wrist when he tried to push past me, not to hurt him, but to stop him from getting any closer to Liam. He started yelling, saying I had assaulted him, but everyone around could see the truth. Ryan came to my side, and Sarah and her family stood up for me. Mr. Thompson realized he was in the wrong. He backed away, still clutching his wrist, and left with his tail between his legs. After the party, I found a letter from a law firm in my mailbox. It was from an attorney representing Mr. Thompson, accusing me of withholding $80,000 that he claimed I owed him through some so-called family arrangements. It was all a lie, but I knew I had to fight back. Ryan and I immediately got a lawyer, Miss Jenkins. She was sharp and no nonsense. She told me that Mr. Thompson was using emotional blackmail and that his case had no legal basis. We started gathering evidence. I found old-school emails, tax documents, and messages from friends that showed how he had abandoned me. Over the next few days, our dining room became a war room filled with papers and timelines. Mr. Thompson started calling from blocked numbers. His voicemails went from self-righteous to pleading to furious. One voicemail in particular was telling. He said he had hoped he wouldn't have to involve lawyers, but I had left him no choice after embarrassing him at the party. It was clear that this was about revenge, not money. Ms. Jenkins sent a formal response letter, rejecting his claim and warning him against further harassment. I also decided to tell the truth on my social media. I wrote a calm, direct post about how he had abandoned me as a teenager and now was trying to extort money from me. The response was overwhelming. Friends, neighbors, and even some extended relatives reached out to support me. Some relatives who had known about his behavior for years admitted they weren't surprised. The woman he was with now also contacted me, saying she had no idea about the extent of his actions. A week later, his side wanted to discuss dismissal. But Ms. Jenkins insisted on a full withdrawal and written confirmation that no further claims would be pursued. We also got reimbursement for some of our legal costs. In the end, Mr. Thompson lost. He posted a public statement, pretending to regret the misunderstandings, but it was too late. People saw him for who he really was. He lost his reputation, and most importantly, he lost any chance of ever being a part of my life again. Life has settled down now. Ryan and I have our evenings together after Liam goes to bed, free from the stress of legal battles. Sarah still jokes about the worst birthday guest ever. And Liam, bless his heart, doesn't remember the man at the gate. I'll do everything in my power to keep it that way. This whole experience has taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who stand by you, who love and support you. And it's okay to set boundaries, to say no to those who only remember you when they need something. I've learned to protect the life I've built, and I'll never let anyone take that away from me again.